Hello again. Listen, we're going to go over chapter one in the everyone really equal text by Sensoy and DiAngelo, chapter one. And so I want you to tune in. This is going to help you with understanding the material from the course. And so let's just jump right in. I'm not going to give a lot of preliminaries. So chapter one deals with how to engage constructively in courses that take a critical social justice approach. What do we mean by critical? We don't mean critical in the sense of critiquing someone, being overly critical and pointing out people's flaws. That's the common usage of the word. A lot of times in academia, we will take a term and sort of redefine it. And critical here is come from a philosophical tradition that is from the Frankfurt School in Germany. We'll talk more about this in other chapters. Then you'll see it in your readings in the Sensoy and DiAngelo text. This is from Is Everyone Really Equal by Sensoy and DiAngelo. But we mean critical. You look at the world as unjust, okay? And we look for solutions as leaders, okay? Anecdotal evidence. So we're going to talk about some of the terms that's highlighted in the chapter. I think this is an important term to understand. A lot of times when people are like Facebook wars or debating on Facebook, and what's the first thing you do too? You see an interesting post, you look at the comments. And I'm just always amazed. There's like 1,000 comments. Like, who are these people? How do they have so much time? Well, maybe that's you. That's like the comment. And people will make arguments offering anecdotal evidence. Well, it's true because my cousin believes it. And so they'll have one small example in their sphere of influence. That's not research because you saw it firsthand. I know for a fact that that fact is true because I saw it myself. But real research has a large sample size. And so if we want to find something out as researchers, we will interview 1,000 people. Let me give you an example. Okay, so we're talking about a math class, for example. And somebody says the best way to teach math is by lecture. That's a terrible way, of course. But that's our argument. That's our that's our thesis. The best way to teach math is by lecture method. And then I will hearken to my own experience. Maybe I learned math well by lecture. Like I had advanced geometry, one of the hardest classes you can have, or trig or calculus, and my teacher lectured the whole time, and I got A's. Therefore, that's the best way to learn math is through lectures. That's anecdotal evidence. That's one example from my personal experience. If I really wanted to find out what's the best way of teaching, I need to sample as many people as possible, okay? Anecdotal evidence, therefore, is evidence that's based on personal stories and single, isolated, or non-representative examples. Non-representative examples, not the best way to learn knowledge. Okay, a platitude, the trite, simplistic, and meaningless statement, often presented as if it were significant or original. And this is the lack of understanding of the depth and breadth of sound knowledge, okay? Mainstream society, the dominant framework for making sense of society that's circulated across all institutions, that all members of society are exposed to. So we're all exposed to this, how we grow up and how we process things and how we're influenced. Peer review. So in scholarship, we talk a lot, as professors and scholars talk a lot about peer review. So as a tenure faculty member, in order to get tenure, I had to go through a peer review process for my portfolio and all of the work I submitted, all the articles. If you go online and see anything I've written, is peer reviewed. That means there was a committee of scholars that looked at my work and decided whether it was good enough or whether they deemed it to be worthy of being published. Okay, the evaluation of scholarly work, often done anonymously to ensure fairness, but by peers with expertise in the same field in order to maintain or enhance the excellence of work in that field and to advance knowledge. Objective versus subjective. And so subjective is opinion, an individual's perspective. It's akin to anecdotal evidence. It's a personal feelings. I feel that in order for somebody to be a good governor, they have to walk the streets and shake hands. That's a feeling. That's a belief. That's a personal interest experience. A lot of times we'll put forth something subjective as if it's real knowledge. You see that a lot on social media. But objective is perspective that some things are factual and not informed by social or cultural interpretation. They're not informed by that. They're factual. Universal truth of any particular framework. And so I encourage you to check out this example in chapter 1, a story, the question of planets. In astronomy class, the student disagrees with the professor about how many planets. The student claims logical thinking for 9 planets. The student disrespects the professor in the story for expressing scientific facts and not just an opinion. The professor tries to explain that he is not the only person in the scientific community that thinks the same thing, so it is not an opinion, but rather a peer-reviewed and accepted fact. So go back and look at that. I think that's a good example of what we're trying to say, that there's a difference between people just giving their opinion, because everybody nowadays thinks that they're an expert. With the advent of social media, everyone thinks they're an expert. Everyone thinks they're a nuclear physicist or a rocket scientist or a history professor or what have you. But people have to have something to back it. You have to have something to back your thoughts, not just your opinion. So guideline 1, strive for intellectual humility. This is my motto, people. We don't know all. When I received my doctorate, I want to pass something on to you, especially the graduate students out there. When I received my doctorate, my professor said, I remember this, or when I was in one of my doctoral classes, because I was so excited to be in a doctoral program, and I hope you'll continue on. And my professor said, we were sitting in class, he said, you can do one or two things when you finish your doctorate. You can say, I have my doctorate degree, therefore there's little else I could learn. I'm a doctor. Or you could use this as an opportunity to keep learning and growing. I say the same thing to folks that are working on their bachelor's, same thing with folks that are working on their master's. You can get that degree and say, oh man, this is so amazing. I'm so smart. I have a college degree and I don't have to learn much. There's little anybody else can tell me because I know. Or you can say, I'm going to continue to build and be a lifelong learner. Okay. Intellectual humility says, I don't know everything, and maybe something can be corrected that I understand. Now I have a better understanding, or I didn't know that. You're not going to lose anything by knowing everything, and nobody thinks you know everything. So don't fool yourself. Don't try to fool anybody else. Okay? Avoid willful ignorance. Ways to achieve intellectual humility: be humble, be a lifelong learner. Like your professor, Dr. Giles, I'm always learning something. I have a 5-year-old at home who wearing me out. That's why I'm tired now. No, she's a joy. She's beautiful. But I learn from her so often. Every day I learn from little Madison. Guideline 2. Everyone has an opinion. Opinions are not the same as informed knowledge. Okay? So just if a person is a nuclear physicist, it doesn't matter what you think if you're not a nuclear physicist. If a person is an archaeologist or a historian, a U.S. history historian, or in my case, U.S. history, I study U.S. history, African-American historian, or educational historian. If you could give your opinion, well, I think that history repeats itself. If you haven't studied that topic, that's just an opinion. Don't disrespect a woman that has been studying this for 20 years. Doesn't mean she knows everything, but she knows a lot about that subject. We can accept opinions, but they're not on the same plain as informed knowledge. Guide 3. Let go of anecdotal evidence and instead examine patterns, constructive ways to engage with the course content. You won't agree with everything in the course and in this reading, that's fine. You wouldn't be the first person to disagree with the material. But we do want you to read the material and try to get an understanding of what the author is saying. It's the nature of philosophy type of classes. You're not expected just to agree. You probably will. But if you don't, that's okay. Learn the material. Don't dismiss it and say, this is stupid. This is so dumb. I'm done with this. I don't agree. And then just shut down and not do the work. That's ridiculous. Don't be that person. Okay? Number 4. Use your reactions as entry points for gaining a deeper self-knowledge. Understand yourself better. A course like this can trigger strong reactions, but these reactions can be constructive to applying the course concepts. Number 5, guideline 5. Recognize how your social position informs reactions to your instructor and course content. In other words, where I grew up, what my social position is, that can often impact how I respond to the course. It really can. It can often impact how I respond to, let me slow down, how I respond to the material in the readings. Your own position does not have to align with your instructors in order to consider the framework the instructor is using. Consider means just thinking about it, that's all. Does the teacher and the student follow 5 guidelines? Does the instructor avoid willful ignorance? Do either the teacher or the student allow the other to have an opinion? Is a strong reaction the reason for this argument in class? Does either student, these are guidelines to think about, does either the student or the teacher use their social standing for their argument? You can't, the way I grew up was, that's not what we're doing here. Well, that's not how I was raised. That's not what we're doing here. We're trying to understand the material and what the author is saying, or authors, or the readings, or that whatever the course calls for. Okay, that's all, and it's just growing as a person, as a human. That's all I want to say for this one. I want to keep it short. Thank you for listening. You could go back and pause things and curse my name if you want. Put in the comments, I can't stand this dude. I don't even know why he put this on here. He thinks he's all that. And putting things in the chat and trolling me on the YouTube. Listen, don't troll me on YouTube. Be nice to old Dr. Childs, okay? All right, I'll see y'all next time. I'm having too much fun, actually. So talk to you later. Bye.